Hi everyone, my name is Roussel, also known as Deja, and today I am going to be doing a historical romance recommendation video. The day that you were seeing this, part 1 of Bridgerton season 3 is coming out, and I hate that they split it up, but these are just books that I think could help last to like June when the second part comes out. And I also have a few books that I'm going to be reading while I wait for part 2. Before I begin, I do want to say that not all of these are Regency romances. I wouldn't say that I'm like a huge Regency era historical romance reader. If anything, I prefer more diversity in my romances, which is why all of these books are diverse. And I also just have no interest in actually reading the Bridgerton books. The only reason why I can pretty much stand to watch the series on Netflix is because of the added diversity, and honestly even the black diversity on Bridgerton is not the best. But while I can acknowledge that the diversity in terms of the black representation on Bridgerton is not the best, I still have a good time watching the show. So with all of that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into these recommendations. I have 3 that I'm going to recommend, and then I have about 5 that I'm going to probably be reading while I wait for part 2. The first one that I want to recommend is not actually Regency romance. It is an Western romance, and this one is Forbidden by Beverly Jenkins. And I really like this story. This is one of the books that I got into when I was first getting into romance, and this one follows 2 characters. One is a white passing black guy, and the other is a black woman. They end up being like attracted to each other, but it's kind of like a forbidden romance because the passing guy, he can't really be with like a black woman unless he like opens up and says that he's not a white guy as he's passing to be a white guy. So it's just kind of this like forbidden romance, and I really enjoyed it. I really just like their dynamic, and this is actually an entire series, which I recommend the entire series, but Forbidden is my favorite one out of that series, and it is the first book. The next one that I would recommend is Aphrodite and the Duke by J.J. McAvoy. This one is definitely Regency. It is definitely giving me the Bridgerton vibes. You have this big family. It is a multicultural family. I think the mother is black and then the father is white in this story. So you're following the biracial daughter of this couple, and this woman, Aphrodite, she was in love with somebody before they actually end up getting married to somebody else, and so now she's just upset that they actually did that. And I guess this kind of gives me like season 3 vibes, because not that whatever the Bridgerton guy we're following, because I'm not that. I think Colin, actually, I'm not a big fan of Colin, but whatever. But it kind of gives me those vibes because he kind of is like groveling to come back to Aphrodite and just like clearing up like misunderstandings and stuff. So it definitely gives me those vibes. I did enjoy it. I will say that the story kind of felt like 2 different stories, like halfway through, like it started like a completely different story, but overall I really did enjoy it. And the last one that I would recommend is That My Dearest Love. This one kind of gives me like Caribbean vibes, but it's Regency era, because the main character, forgot what her name is, but she grew up on like an island, and the island isn't really like a big part of the story, honestly, but like it gave me those island vibes in the beginning. But this girl ends up leaving her island to actually go to a Regency inspired world where she ends up meeting the son of the woman who took her from her island. Not like slavery took her, but like she allows her to come with her so she could be introduced to society and all of that. But she ends up meeting this woman's son, and they have like a romance. To me, the story wasn't really like a huge romance, but it does give me those Bridgerton vibes with like the banter and then like the drama. So I would say try it out. And the author also has other books in this series. I think the next one is Sapphic if you want to get into that one. So now I'm going to go into just a few of the books that I'm thinking I'm going to be reading because they sound really good. And so the first one is actually an arc that releases on May 21st that I have, and this one is A Gamble at Sunset by Vanessa Riley. I really liked how Vanessa Riley wrote the Island Queen book, so I'm hoping I really enjoy this historical romance. This one is definitely Regency inspired. It follows like a big family, and honestly, I'm not quite sure who we're going to be following because from the summary, it kind of gave me like two different romance. Like there's like kind of like a, not a groveling, but like a romance where like the guy did wrong and the woman's like mad at him, and then there's also like a romance between like a singer and somebody. So I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to get from this, but it's definitely giving me those vibes. The next one that I have is Anna Maria and the Fox, and while I have not heard great things about this one, I love the cover of this one, and I really just wanted like a Latinx inspired historical romance. I don't think I've ever read one, so definitely want to do that. I also have The Dragon and the Pearl by Jeannie Lee, and this one is a Tang Dynasty inspired historical romance. I read the first one, Butterfly Swords, and I really enjoyed that one, but I didn't realize that it was interracial, and so I really wanted to read the second one because that one isn't interracial, and I just really like Chinese historical settings, so I'm hoping that I really enjoy this one. Along the same lines of Chinese historical romances, I have The Moon in the Palace, and this one follows like a concubine falling in love or something, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm gonna get from this, but it sounds really good and I'm excited to try it. I also have Never Cross a Highlander, which I did start on audiobook, and it was definitely a drastic difference from the historical romance that I have read. This audiobook, like they have the accents and everything, so this will be an interesting book to read, but it's already introducing like racism and stuff, which is very interesting because I feel like one of the things that Bridgerton doesn't do well is the concept of race. Like it tries to be like colorblind, but then it also doesn't because they have those like little speeches and stuff. So I'm not exactly sure why they decided to make it like a colorblind society, but then also not really, because they had those speeches. So I'm not really sure with like the world building with the Bridgerton, but I like reading BIPOC authors historical romances because they do address those like instances and like how it is possible that maybe the Duke is half Chinese, or maybe the Duke is, I don't know, the son of some other woman. Like I don't know, like they usually explain it so it becomes like plausible, which is why like I usually like reading them. I also have Compromise into a Scandalous Marriage, and this one is like Caribbean inspired, so hopefully I will like that one as well. And the last one that I have is The Princess Stakes, which I don't know anything about, but I saw the cover and I just wanted to read it. But that's like all the books that I'm hoping to maybe get to while I'm waiting for June 16th, I think, for part 2 of Bridgerton to come out. And then of course in the beginning I had like a few recommendations that I had, but that will wrap up today's video. I hope that you have enjoyed it, and I thank you so much for watching. If you want to leave a comment, you can leave a comment on like whether or not you're a Bridgerton fan, or maybe even just like if you have historical romances that I should read. I will definitely take those recommendations. If you don't want to leave any of those comments, you can always just leave one of the emojis on the screen, and that will be greatly appreciated as well. But again, I thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!